Hello and welcome to the Tilted Roll Podcast.
Hi.
We're sadly starting this a little late, which is more unfortunate just for our group, but I don't even know what we're doing for a group today.
That's
so
true.
Here we are.
Man.
We also have two mics this time. This is nice. Also, I feel like this should be of note. We're recording this. I'm actually going to rush this episode out a little faster.
Okay.
Because we've got two big cool topics, actually technically three, but two big cool topics, and then one that's more of our normal type of topic.
Yes.
But that is we have new news. But first, I am Marshall, and I am one of your podcast masters.
And I am Francisco, the unknown other one.
Unknowing. But we have, so I wanted to do this because I felt like since this is we're getting two new releases here, we should be more prompt on this one.
Exactly.
So I mentioned like last week a time related thing. It'll be slightly delayed, but you know,
Yeah.
that's what happens. That's how Mafia works.
Marshall here's a level 100 boss.
Yes. A little bit of a behind the scenes aspect. We usually record these essentially so that we have a 1 week pad or one episode pad, just for any in terms of any. Usually it would be so that we didn't miss an episode. The last time though we did miss an episode, that was just because of work related things that I just kind of got caught up in. But the idea in the future would be that we wouldn't miss episodes if we ever couldn't record.
Right. And that's always a good thing. A good practice for anybody who's looking to do this sort of thing.
Yes. So, however, since we are talking about this now today, there have been two new amazing additions, although one is not out yet, which we'll talk about first.
Ooh.
Which is, do you like boats? Do you like boats?
I'm on a boat. In life.
With my flippy floppies. No. So they announced finally the Ghosts of Saltmarsh.
Oh, man. I am so excited, only because of the fact that Saltmarsh, if people who are not in the know, is set originally in Greyhawk. So, we have something new in a different setting other than Forgotten Realms. And the book itself is supposedly sort of like akin to Tales of the Yawning Portal, where you have you have all these classic adventurers compiled into this new book. And for this one, Ghosts of Saltmarsh is based off the first edition Town of Saltmarsh, in which there are three main adventures, all available now on DM's Guild as a bundle.
Now I think it is still technically just a pre-order on here. I'm gonna double check that if I can get to sources here. Yeah, I mean it still marks it as coming soon.
Yes.
So essentially you can pre-order it now on D&D Beyond or at your local game store, like Geneva Games.
Oh yeah.
But you it's I mean you can get it and it will you can see what some of you can get the good description, which here I'll read it for you all.
Do it.
You know, why not just do it for you here? By the way, just have just make sure your mic will be a little closer to you.
Got it.
Because I have, I guess, the benefit of having the mic not in my face. You don't, apparently. Mics are fun.
I know, right?
So the description for it is, or the flavor text at least is, nestled on the nestled on the coast of the Azure Sea is Saltmarsh, a sleepy fishing village that sits upon the precipice of destruction. Smugglers guide their ships to hidden coves, willing to slit the throat of any fool enough to cross the path. Cruel Sahuagin gather beneath the waves, plotting to sweep away coastal cities. Drowned sailors stir to unnatural life, animated by dark magic and sent forth in search of revenge. The cult of a forbidden god extends its reach outward from a decaying port, hungry for fresh victims and willing recruits. While Saltmarsh slumbers, the evils that seek to plunder it grow stronger. Heroes must arise to keep the sea lanes safe for all.
I am very excited for this book.
That was a cold read too, so that's pretty. I feel like I was relatively impressed myself that I only screwed up the beginning of that.
Yeah,
I can't speak normal sentences properly, let alone a cold read.
Welcome again to our podcast.
Hello. But for those who are curious and maybe are slightly unaware, this is going to be adventures for levels 1 through 12. So what I assume to be probably going to be a relatively beefy adventure book.
Pretty much.
For an adventure book, I imagine this is going to be kind of thick.
Yeah.
They're usually pretty thin.
It might
comparably.
Yeah. It might be about the same size, if not a little bit shorter than the Dungeons of the Mad Mage, which in itself is a
Yes,
pretty big book.
That is pretty. I would say, if anything, it might only be slightly smaller, but it definitely would be bigger than Dragon Heist.
Oh yeah,
And bigger than Strahd as well. Because I know Strahd is. It feels like it's bigger, but I might be just thinking of it or misremembering it.
Strahd's a little bit smaller than Mad Mage.
Well, I know it's smaller than Mad Mage. They're all smaller than Mad Mage. But Mad Mage is also 5 through 20, so it's a lot of stuff.
It is.
But yeah. Yeah, no, this book I imagine will be relatively decent sized compared to it'll be much bigger. I think it'll definitely be bigger than Dragon Heist or Strahd.
Because it doesn't deal with just the adventure itself. It also deals with establishing ship rules.
Yeah, and that might actually make it up. That itself might make enough to get up to about that Mad Mage level.
Oh yeah, just because the thing, if you guys know, Wizards of the Coast released a Unearthed Arcana about ships and boats.
Yes,
something I've been looking at it. Something I've been looking at closely for something I'm working on for the future. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Very soon.
Yes, very soon. And with all that, they have different rules and whatnot. This is going to cement those rules or whatever they got from the playtest, which is why I'm excited. Also, not to mention, I just like a new setting, man.
I mean, yeah, I always think it's really cool to kind of get out of the Forgotten Realms. I think that's why you do see, obviously, a lot of homebrew stories out there. I think most time people play campaigns outside of AL. I feel like a lot of times they're going to be homebrew unless the DM is newer.
That's true.
There are very few in book adventures and games that I've played. But I think it's because obviously people do like to experience things different. They like to experience things that are unique and personal in terms of DM, but they also like to experience things that are different.
Yes,
that aren't, because people especially who have played for a long time. They've been to Eberron multiple times. They've done the Forgotten Realms multiple times. They've played things like Baldur's Gate. They know Neverwinter. These are names that are long, and while they are valuable, they've been done.
Yes.
So in the Saltmarsh, not something that's been seen in a long time.
Oh yeah, that's since first edition.
This is a big revival because many people who play the game weren't alive when that was conceded.
Think about that for a good while. And you
conceived. Sorry.
Yeah.
Conceded.
You bring up a good point. I'm very curious to see how they do this in the AL ring as well. Because usually with these new books.
Especially because if it's an adventure that they write, they usually. So I'm also curious to see if they kind of are. And maybe that's why they decided to release a new setting like this in a very large level area, so that it kind of gives you the time. If they kind of pull a Strahd-esque type of scenario where they're but instead it's just more of you have to find a way to be shipped back within the adventure, then okay, then you can get some time, between if you start there level 1 and if you can get some time maybe to go back.
Right. I'm also curious to see if they go back to the old system of awarding XP rewards and all that, because right now they're using the check system.
Milestone?
Something like that. Pretty much you get a certain amount of checks and then it equals to experience and whatnot. So I'm hoping they go back to that.
Probably is roughly the milestone.
Yeah, it kind of turned off a lot of people in this season. But next season, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, they haven't released that information as of yet. It would be very interesting to see if this does kind of maybe inspire the next season more. Since obviously the last season had a lot of inspiration from the Waterdeep books.
Oh yeah.
It was the whole thing was labeled with Waterdeep and whatnot. So maybe this one will have Saltmarsh. Maybe they're trying to use this as a way to get into it. Well, won't know until we see it. That's just all hypothetical.
That's true. I mean, if you want to look at information about the city itself, it's actually, if you ever want to just go dive into old books, it's actually in the DMG 2 for first edition.
Yeah.
They have as a sample town. It has all
that's another thing that you just don't. It just reminds me from old editions on how many multiple books there were. And that's what's funny is because again you think of my mind goes back to 3.5 with how I think that had Player's Handbook 2, that had Monster Manual. I think that one only went up to 2.
Yes.
but like, and that had a very short span of time, so they were just like plowing out books for this, and they've taken just such a very backed approach to this, and it's kind of in a way it's nice for them because they're able to build up, I think, a lot more hype for books now. Like when new books come out for 5th edition, I feel like they get a lot more hype around it, and in a way that may work in their favor. Obviously, that does slightly suffer the content a little bit, but this is also the easiest edition to do homebrew for if you really want to get your own stuff in there.
Right, and speaking of homebrew, we said that it's in Greyhawk, but change a few names, you can easily put in whatever setting you want to put in. Your own
that's the thing
homebrew
about
world.
these that you always can do.
Oh, yeah.
Your own.
Same thing with the Tales of the Yawning Portal. Yawning Portal could be existing anywhere. It might not even be called a Yawning Portal. It's why I love D&D so much. The flexibility of everything now, at the very least.
Yeah, and one thing that is also kind of interesting about this is that I wanted to note is this is slightly more expensive than obviously going to the levels, but it's about the price in terms digitally. It's about the same price as the normal book.
Okay.
Like it's $30 on D&D Beyond. I'm imagining it'll be probably about the same on Amazon, and then game stores maybe a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
Well, not maybe, but it'll be a little bit more. But then that's just interesting. So like for example, Curse of Strahd is $25 on digitally.
Yep.
And that's 1 through 10. So add 2 levels, that's an extra $5, which makes sense. I'm not saying that's weird. But it's just interesting to me also just because it shows that it's a long adventure, but B, I feel like it does also show that they're clearly going to have a decent amount of content. You can
I love this door.
The people stop with the door so many times. It's so funny. Anyway, yeah, so that I just thought that was interesting because I do feel like it somewhat shows to me that because it's going to be full price book level,
right.
That I think there's definitely going to be a decent amount of content in this.
Oh yeah, fair bit. There's actually already a release content. If you go on to D&D Beyond, they do the same where they do an encounter of the week. Our boy James Hayek, Heckin released a adventure. I believe it was him. I want to say it was him, called Sharkfin Shipwreck. It was him. And that deals prominently with one of the prominent enemies in the book, potentially the Sahajin, which is these fish people that want to murder you, storms and ships.
Yes, they're good old Sahuagin.
Yes, and also it brings back a skill challenge, Marshall.
Ah, yes, skill challenges. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was just 4th edition that brought that. Then my group would use skill challenges a lot going into. You could do. I was gonna say you could have these set up very different ways, but we would use these. We would use skill challenges a lot in our campaign. Sorry.
Yes.
Which it was always interesting. The problem I definitely was running into though is the ability to implement them sometimes can be a small problem. It's just one of those things where it's like you are either replacing combat with it, or you are doing something that is non-combat related, but you want to add the simplicity of being able to have kind of a tier of terms of turns. So they can come in a pinch. But when a lot of what you're doing is relating to kind of fighting, the combat itself kind of seems more like a worthy need rather than actually just doing something maybe a little different.
And don't get me wrong, it's a lot of fun to do and be on the receiving end of it.
Yeah.
Especially since you're just throwing out, like, how do I creatively get through this? Yell at everybody and hopefully they stop.
Yeah. And what's nice about skill challenges is it's really easy to change just how difficult it is. Not just by DC, but you can change something because the DC is just based on whatever they're trying to do. If they're trying to do something really complicated, then sure. But if you're trying to do something really simple, you can either say, well, if it's too simple, you can just say that, well, it's not really going to do anything for you. Like you can just look at it realistically, like, okay, but if you do that, that's not doing anything. Like you'd be like, I use athletics to jump 2 feet, or not even like to jump this 1 foot, and like you can be like, okay. Yeah, that you technically could use a skill for that just to see if you roll a 1. But but technically that's not helping you in any way, so that wouldn't work for the skill challenge.
Yes.
But you can but if they wanted to do something where it was like, I want to leap onto this person's shoulders and use them to kind of bungee myself forward, and then it's like, all right, well that may take like a decent like they may not just be like a roll a 10 or higher acrobatics check. That's gonna be more like a 13 or 15.
Yep.
Depending on your level. So, and that's what was always fun about skill challenges. It'd be interesting to see, if they do actually bring these back in the full book. And seemingly, it does seem like that may be coming.
Maybe.
Which is cool.
I mean, it's just the lead writer for D&D Beyond who's giving us a sneak peek about it.
I'm just saying.
Right. Who knows?
He may just like it and just using it himself in this encounter. You never know.
That's fair. That's our good heckin' boy, James Hayden.
But no, it is. I think there's gonna be cool stuff to add from this.
Have you seen the alternate cover for it, by the way?
I have not actually.
Oh my God! Look it up right now. You'll be all right. So for those who are watching and those who are familiar with the Mordecai's Tome of Foes alternate cover, where you have Mordecai staring down all these creatures, it's more towards that instead of the revamped covers for the DMG, the Monster Manual, and the Player's Handbook that Wizards released back in Christmas. It's more of a realistic just cover of just a Sahajin. Like I said, one of the potentially more common enemies you're going to be facing in these adventures. And it just looks so radical, man.
Yeah, it's very classic looking. Like it is very close to like what a lot of the old, like the framing of it is very old school. That's actually that is really interesting. That's cool.
Oh yeah, it's very good to look at. But the original cover, it's a party on a tiny little boat, fighting off some enemies while there's like this big bad in the background.
They're dealing with the one Sahuagin, and then in the background is what looks like a crab and the Kraken. So they're going to die.
Yeah, it's a metaphor for actual campaigns.
I don't think they make it through this.
Yes. So it's a metaphor typically of them fighting the small things, while in the background, the big things actually destroying everything. They're not paying attention to it.
Yeah,
Which is how most campaigns go.
We were laughing earlier about how timid people are on the door.
Oh, yeah.
So it's funny. But that isn't the only new thing that's popped its way in to Dungeons and Dragons.
Before we go into that, May 21st, make sure if you want the alternate cover, I would pre-order it. Oh, yeah. Because it's going to go fast. Usually they do. But definitely check it out.
Though you may be able to find them at your local game store.
Yes.
Like I did once.
So look at your game store, guys. They're around there.
You never know.
Yes, you never know. But yes.
So there is a new edition that is out now. You can go use it. Well, you can test it. It's not released. But it is playtest. It's UA. It's the Artificer.
It's back,
revisited.
Baby. Revised.
And they call it revisited.
That's fair. So,
tomato. So for those who may not know, in a recent podcast we talked about the idea that I mentioned my need and my want for a new class.
Yes.
I didn't say that it had to be the Artificer. I just wanted a new, because I've played the Artificer that was in it. It was both good and had its faults, I felt like.
Yep.
So they took it kind of down. It used to be in D&D Beyond too. They kind of pulled it out, and did some work on it, and now released it into the world again.
And it's great because now it has, I want to say, 3 subclasses.
I only saw 2.
Oh, I know there's the Alchemist, what's it
there
called?
is the Artificer Specialist.
Ooh.
Oh no, sorry. Sorry, that is just what it's called. They're just called specialties. My bad. There is the Alchemist.
Yep.
And then there is the Artillerist.
Ooh, the Artillerist. Got it. The Artillerist replaced the Gunsmith.
Yes, that is no longer in it. So if you are an old Artificer, or the last Artificer, I should say, the 2 subclasses were both the Alchemist, so that stuck, and then there was, as you mentioned, the Gunsmith.
Yes.
So it kind of allowed you to be a gunslinger, but kind of less in the whole grit idea, the lost cowboy idea.
Oh yeah.
If you want to be the gunslinger, though, technically, because it's indeed let's kick the table. Honestly, though, if you want to be, I think part of maybe and this might have been part of their reasoning, is that since they kind of be D&D Beyond, especially because of that Wizards, seems to very clearly have kind of like a forefront with kind of helping push the Mercer stuff.
Yep.
And the Critical Role additions. I think they're kind of maybe realized that, like, okay, well, Matt Mercer can just make his McCree subclass.
Pretty much.
And then we'll just change the Artificer to maybe be a little more traditional.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of, to me, when I was reading this looked more like what I expect from the Artificer in the first place. Like from older editions.
Yeah.
Well, because they didn't make guns before. They're about building they did two things. They either built essentially their own animal companion, but it was mechanical.
Right.
Or they were, they were potion makers. They were all about building. Like, that's what they were. They were about inventing and inventing things, machinery. And while the thunder cannon, as it was called, made sense in that realm, it just wasn't the same light that it used to be. So to me, this more hits a traditional look at what the Artificer is.
Yeah. I personally I'm just happy they released something new about that.
Yeah, it is nice to know that they're going at it. It's weird that they put the spell list in the middle of the PDF, and it throws me off every time.
Yeah, I was like, I'm already at the end? What?
Mm-hmm. And they're like, nope, wait.
Hold on. But yeah, it's yet to be put into D&D Beyond, which is what they typically do for homebrew classes. I know some of the subclasses are on there already.
I think it's just because it released yesterday.
Oh yeah. So we'll give it the week. We'll see what happens.
They probably wanted to put it out and then maybe they'll add it later. We'll find out.
Oh yeah. But it would be interesting to play. I although I will miss the Thunder Cannon.
I will too.
Yes. It would be cool to see what these new subclasses bring to the table.
Yes, there was also interestingly, English is apparently escaping me. There are kind of nice also one of the things that I think really helps and I think really makes the Artificer kind of nice to play or desirable to play.
Yeah.
Are its infusions. But let's start from the beginning of it. I think we're floating around the PDF a little too much here. Let's start from the beginning. For those who are not aware, they're like, what's an Artificer? So we'll start with at least just we'll go with the flavor text. Start from there. So the flavor text is playtest material. This character. Oh wait, sorry, that's funny. Do you like my joke?
Yeah.
Masters of unlocking magic in everyday objects, Artificers are supreme inventors. They see magic as a complex system waiting to be decoded and controlled. Artificers use tools. Sorry, for some reason I only read it as just without the S. Use tools to channel arcane power, crafting temporary and permanent magical objects. To cast a spell, an Artificer could use alchemist supplies to create a potent elixir, calligrapher's supplies to inscribe a sigil of power to an ally's armor, or tinker's tools to craft a temporary charm. The magic of Artificers is tied to their tools and their talents.
Mm-hmm.
So very much because what's funny is because they made the UA a little while ago. It was in later 2018, I know, but I forgot exactly when they released it. But they released the School of Invention Wizard.
Oh yeah.
And this took the concept of that. Like, Artificer kind of takes that concept of like a wizard who is meant about invention, except it kind of just fully expands on that. Like, it's like, imagine somebody who was in the School of Invention, and then they're just like, but inventing though. Because at least the difference with the wizard subclass is that a lot of it, while they have a lot of tool proficiencies, they actually don't, unless you do it in like a role-playing sense, they don't actually invent a lot of stuff. Like, they don't have like a bunch of spells that, they don't get a bunch of spells that create constructs and whatever.
Right.
They just, you can do that out of character, but they don't have a lot of in subclass and in class stuff abilities to be able to like create things.
Oh, that's interesting.
This does.
Yes.
This is all about that.
And it's funny too, because this would be the second class Wizards would have ever released that deals primarily in intelligence. Besides,
Yes, there's not
wizard.
many, and
No.
that's kind of one of the things that I do like. If they are, which kind of this tells me is that they are planning to maybe release this within the year.
Oh yeah. Besides the wizards, there's some subclasses that deals primarily with it: the Arcane Trickster, Eldritch Knight, and the Arcana domain of the clerics.
Yeah, pretty
But-
much anything that allows you to cast Arcane when you don't normally cast Arcane.
Pretty
Then
much.
you get to add your intelligence, but outside of that, nothing else. Like nothing
Yeah.
base wise.
And another quick fun thing about this is that at level, I believe I just saw it. It's there. At a level here, you can actually switch out cantrips.
Yes, so we'll get to that. I think.
Yeah, 10th level.
But we'll get to that.
Yes.
So it's a 1d8 class, which is kind of nice. It makes you a little bit beefier than say a wizard.
Right.
I think that's kind of the one thing that will be the constant is to try to compare this to the wizard as we go, because I think a lot of people look at the artificer in general and are kind of like, oh, this is just a wizard that's a little different.
Yes.
But there's definitely more to it than that. It's very correct in that it's similar because it's another intelligence-based class. Inherently, the warlock and the sorcerer are not that different. But they, like, in terms of, like, if you think of them in one way, like, if you think of them in very basic ways, but that would seem to be true for this. Whereas, like, if you actually look at them, they're very different.
Mm-hmm.
But if you kind of get this, like, just overall idea of how their spellcasting works, then you would think they're very similar.
Oh yeah, and this class, I believe, has the most tool proficiencies that you can get. It gives you 3 right off the bat.
Mm-hmm. Similar to the Inventor Wizard, but again, this makes a lot more use of those things within it.
Yes.
So they do. I will note, I guess, they make the note in here very early on that they do include the optional rule for firearm proficiency. So that supposedly if you're running a campaign where if you're using maybe the DMG or some other homebrew rule sets for firearms, inherently you could put it that artificers would have firearm proficiency. I think it's partly that's their way of remembering the Thunder Cannon, but still putting it to bed.
Never forget the Thunder Cannon.
Never forgetty. Thunder Cannon.
Right. And let's see, saving throws, Constitution, and Intelligence.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
One, obviously, intelligence just being your casting, and Constitution for concentration. They can get the skills of Arcana, History, Investigation, Medicine, Nature, Perception, and Sleight of Hand. Also makes plenty of sense to me.
And here we're looking at the equipment real quick. Just your standard light crossbow, studded leather armor. They start with studded leather armor. Oh my god.
You can, yeah, or you could start with scale mail. They can get up to medium armor, which is a big difference, obviously, with the wizard. Like honestly, like if your downside, if you kind of like the wizardy idea of being like somebody who uses a lot of study and who kind of uses their intelligence, then really honestly, like but like you're just kind of concerned about their beefiness and their ability to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Artificer is a great possible option. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect because it may not be the type of theme you want, but the option is definitely there.
That's true. Just get the Arcano mechanical armor.
Well, that is only if you're a School of Invention wizard. If you want, I'm more saying like if you wanted to play a more necrotic based wizard, or if you wanted to play a very like an evocation based, or if you wanted to play like a divination wizard.
Yes.
They obviously probably aren't going to have the same personalities of invention and all that. Maybe. If you still do, then there may be some ways to go about it here. But if you wanted to play something that is very not purely just tech based, then this may be a good option for you.
Mm-hmm.
This maybe wouldn't be a solid option. But if you're kind of playing just a very smart, studious wizard, this may be a good alternative if you're concerned about survivability.
Oh yeah. And then we're looking at the features now. The first level, you essentially get to make a small little object, a tiny non-magical object in your hand that does one of the following, which is either shed light. You can do a recorded message, which is always fun. You like
leave it there, and then like your party, like you run away. Your party picks up. It's like, oh, he must have left his note on this. Let me listen. I hate you. Damn it! Why? Why in your death must you troll me?
The last wish. And also it emits your choice of odor, or non-verbose sound.
Yeah.
So you can make a nice little like static machine so you can go to sleep easier.
White noise maker. Static visual effects on one of the object's surfaces. This effect can be a picture, up to 25 words of text, lines, and shapes, or a mixture of these elements as you like. So you could create the Harry Potter newspaper.
Yes. And looks like there's no real limit how many objects you can make. It's just a matter of just making them.
I mean, these are all small enough that, it's just mainly time that kind of may get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, these are so small, it really
here we go.
doesn't get in the way too much.
Here's the limit. You can do it up to your intelligence modifier.
Which could be 5.
Yes. So have 5 things that yell, I hate you to your party. It's fantastic. But also at level 1, you get spellcasting.
No, you have 5 things that are like, I have a secret. You must know. You have to find these ones. And you have laid them across the land. And you do that. Like throughout the adventure, you like lay these somewhere. Mm-hmm. And then like when they have to come back, and then all of a sudden like you fail and you're like, you fall and you're like, here, I have this. And then like you must go back and you must find these. And then the last one's on his desk and he's like, good, you have found all of the clues that led you back here. The important note that must be kept secret from everybody is, you're all asses.
The ultimate endgame quest line.
Yes, it is. There would be just the ability to troll is glorious.
Oh yeah. But yeah, level 1, you also get spellcasting, which is interesting because this one requires tools, so assembly is required.
So it is interesting. This also gets to your difference that may turn you off from the Artificer if you're maybe trying to replace your wizard. The idea that your spell casting is not just like, oh, I cast this spell. Like your type of spell casting, if you look at the table, whenever you do look at this, you can only go up to level 5 in terms of your spell levels. So you do get cantrips, which is not something that most half casters get, but you at least do get to the spells themselves are not always going to be like, you're not going to be putting out a bunch of fireballs all the time. You know, you're going to be a lot of your spells are more utility based.
Yes,
that's kind of what this is. This is very much a utility based class,
which can open up a lot of avenues because you're not right up there and you're typically going to be the last one to survive.
Just because you do not do all of the damage in a fight does not mean you can't do anything in one.
Exactly. There's been plenty of bard who has dealt the final blow from a
bard that isn't College of Swords bard.
Also true.
Because they just are DPS then.
One example, Sam Riegel as Scanlan Shorthalt in Critical Role. Always seems to be in the right place at the right time, except for when he isn't.
Yep.
The 2 times he died. Spoilers.
But yeah, so you do get cantrips. But the tools, let's talk about the tools required.
Yes. I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, so you produce your Artificer spell effects through your tools. You must have a spellcasting focus, specifically Thieves' tools or some type of Artisan's tools. Now, you do get proficiency in a tool set with the starting kit, so you're not going to be like without this level 1. But you have to have these in hand when you cast any spell using this spellcasting feature. You must be proficient with the tool to use it in this way, and then that is kind of more of just like being in tune with equipment. After you gain the infuse item feature at 2nd level, you can also use any item bearing one of your infusions as a spellcasting focus. So it's not that like you hold it and you have to actually like build the spell.
Yes.
It is more that these tools are your spellcasting focus. I pull out my screwdriver. Die.
A regular Doctor Who, if you know what I mean.
Oh, no, I didn't think about that. No, I didn't think about that.
goes, well, here on my week.
I do like the idea though that so you're doing cure wounds and it's a touch spell, so you have to actually be up there. So just like the idea of just like, let me just fix this wound for you here.
It's like, oh, you're cured. Oh, I'm so awesome.
Oh, I'm not good with these Elvenese models.
Your party's looking up there. It's like, I'm literally dying.
But I've cured you.
I just pull out my weeding shears and cast Firebolt. And then infuse what's it called? Infuse item feature.
Yes.
Once you get that, I can just imagine casting on your armor. It's like, I'm always wearing my spellcasting focus. I need to cast, let's go with Shocking Grasp. Hug me.
I mean, or it could just be like,
Pretty
like your
much.
arm.
Put it on your glove.
Yeah, so we'll see if we'll look at some notable spells that maybe intrigue us.
Let's see here.
I'll get to one. I find it interesting that they know Thorn Whip. That's interesting to me.
Ooh, they put a druid spell on here.
Yeah, that's why I was interested by that. They also get Spare the Dying, which is really helpful.
Oh yeah.
Again, I'm dying. Well, here, let me just put that back together. There. No, you're not gonna die at least. All right. Mage Hand, I think makes a lot of sense.
Of course.
Light obviously does.
Mending.
Mm-hmm. Mending. So actually, we'll talk about that later.
Yes.
There's actually something very important about mending with the Artificer, and if you don't take mending, you're playing the class wrong. And I don't say that often, but you are.
It's like Warlock and not picking Eldritch Blast.
Kind of. Pretty much.
Yeah. Let's see. Bridges
but even worse,
Yeah.
because I've seen people argue why they wouldn't take Eldritch Blast, and it makes sense. This doesn't. This wouldn't.
We'll find out. We'll give it time.
But that's only because of the two subclasses that already exist for it. Warlock has more subclasses for it.
Right.
So there's more reason for them.
I'm just thinking
yeah.
Thorn Whip, just pull out, hey, you want to see my tools? And they just come in 10 feet closer to you.
Otherwise, the first level spells, nothing really hits out too much. Things like Cure Wounds, Shield of Faith.
For the fact that this class comes with its own spell. Arcane Weapon.
Yeah, so I was going to kind of get to that later. So they do get Arcane Weapon, which is going to be another somewhat important note.
Yes.
Not as important as Mending, maybe, but potentially.
But they do have some spells that make sense, like Grease.
Yes. Otherwise, going to second level, things like so what's nice is kind of also if you're a red mage kind of guy, Artificer is kind of in that realm. That's kind of why I started to play it in 3.5. And I played it a bit on Dungeons and Dragons Online.
Yes.
Good old DDO. Still technically going, but I don't know how the fan base is on that.
That's decent.
And I haven't played it in a long time.
I'm just
I should play it again.
I'm just happy to see that they have cleric spells on here as well.
Right, and that is an old thing, and there's a reason for that. And that kind of will be in tune with the mending idea. And it's kind of, but in ideally the idea is that kind of the Artificer is is a full-on repairer of not only machines, but you.
Can they heal my broken heart?
Maybe. I think Cure Wounds can do that. Oh, you mean emotionally? Well, maybe not.
Yeah.
But they do get things like See Invisibility and Spider Climb, which is just kind of interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of it is just kind of interesting. But it makes sense. There's a trap. The hole is up on the roof. Okay, give me a minute.
Right. It's like, oh man, my ceiling fan's broken. I got you.
What is nice is actually it does give you what kind of is kind of nice is you can kind of use an Artificer to be somewhat of a trap monkey if you want.
That's true.
People like if trap monkey is kind of an insult, but people like doing that. Like being able to disarm traps can be a very satisfying thing, and nobody is going to hate you for disarming the trap,
except the DM who will just look at you.
That's a different story.
I had that all planned out, and you destroyed it in 3 rolls.
But see, that's bad preparation.
That's true.
If you know you have a trap monkey in your party, then you should do something to trap the trap monkey. But they
third level we have
they get Fly, and I think that was also funny to me.
as well as Revivify.
Yes, so that was the one I definitely wanted to get to, which is Revivify. They don't. That's pretty much the best they get in that realm, but they can bring somebody back to life.
Yes.
And one way or another, they can do it.
Yeah.
May not be the most.
Conditions may apply.
Yeah, it may not be the nicest way of doing it, or the most convenient, but it can be done.
Yeah, in a pinch.
In a pinch.
Yeah, in a pinch, they'll stab you with a screwdriver and you'll come back to life because
I will fix your soul.
it's not
It's like
your
a power
time,
drill.
pretty much. That's all the rest of the party hears behind them as they just turn around. And their party's like, oh, I'm awake, but at what cost?
At what cost?
And we have haste, of course.
Yes, that would make plenty of sense to me.
Gaseous form, always funny to me.
That's what I love gaseous form as a spell. It there's not a lot of times you get to use it, but when you can, it can be the funniest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
So funny.
And then there's water walk in case your artificer wants to, go
with
full god complex.
However, note with some of these are pretty much by ritual only, and then note that to the side.
Mhm.
They'll mark it as a ritual spell, but you do get ritual casting as an artificer, which is
Always
handy,
nice, yes.
a very handy thing.
Let's see here. 4th level, we have Arcane Eye.
Yep.
Fabricates.
Both of those make sense.
My favorite one, Mordecai's Faithful Hound. Do you want an invisible dog that will bite for 48 damage? So do I.
Or he can get his private sanctum,
Right?
because even though it's his private sanctum, I guess you can use it anyway.
Pretty much. Do you want to be that squatter he comes back home to? It's like, oh, man, why you gotta live in my attic? That could be you.
This is my private sanctum.
But in reality, we all know we're going to get the Faithful Hound because dogs are amazing. And they attack at the beginning of your turn.
Then you can get both stone spells with stone shape and stone skin.
Mm-hmm.
Stone skin is not one of the most useful, but one of those that, like, honestly, if you really wanted to, it can help you.
Yes.
It's one of those that you look at it on paper and you think, like, essentially, because like you would think would be like, oh, does it give me better AC? Well, no, but it gives you resistance to normal damage.
Pretty much.
And that can be helpful if you're kind of in that type of situation. Now, at 4th level, the sad part is that 4th level's casting. So let's see, maybe when would you get that?
True. And fun fact.
At level 9, is that maybe going to be the top priority? Are you going to be fighting everything with non-magical weaponry? Depends on depends on your campaign.
Possibly. And if you're playing in Ghosts of Saltmarsh and you have to go down to the depths, cast Stone Skin and just let yourself drop.
And then you don't forget though to ritual cast water breathing.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. But then finally, 5th level sadly does not have a lot of spell options, but I think it's because
It's got some fun ones.
well, and also in most classes, there are just some levels that don't get a lot of spells.
Oh yeah,
That's just the way it is.
so we have enemy objects. Always fun when you
And
want
makes the most sense for this class.
when you want to recreate Fantasia.
Creation, another very obvious kind of, I think, spell to put into this list. Wall of Stone, I think, is something that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But then Greater Restoration. So essentially, maybe, you revivify somebody, but you're like, all right, they're essentially a noodle. Let me fix that.
And then Bigsby's hand, because sometimes the best assistant you can get is a giant purple hand right behind you. Thank you, Bigsby, for that great spell.
So, and there's a cool note here that I think could be read better if you kind of read the full thing. But there's a note in here that I think is interesting, which is kind of like how the Artificer, you can kind of get creative on how the Artificer actually casts the spells. So if you cast Cure Wounds using alchemist supplies, the idea maybe is that you're just quickly producing a salve. Otherwise, if you use Tinker's Tools, you might have a miniature mechanical spider that bites wounds. So it's just like, go, healed, and then it just like disappears or fades away or breaks down. Like,
And your party thinks like, oh my god, this weirdo just touched me.
why did this just happen? Or yeah, like literally you could just think of like, you're just like poison spray. I just throw acid at you. Like it is just what it is. And so you can actually have some fun with it if you really want. You don't really have to like just be like, I glow through the power of my screwdriver and it goes. If you want to, you can. But finally, let's get to infuse items.
Ooh, we were talking about this a little bit when we were talking about spellcasting, but in the description it says you gain the ability to imbue mundane items with certain magical infusions.
Yes.
Looks like there is a certain limit of infusions you can know, which is always nice. It gives you options, so it might work in the same way as the Warlock's invocations.
Somewhat. The biggest benefit to this, honestly, is mainly just the fact that you can put your spells into things to have them be useful or to have your party use them. That's where a lot of things can come into huge pinches and actually really save people. Like if you want to put Spare the Dying on somebody, and like you give it to your barbarian, and then they're like fight this thing, and they're like, "Uh-oh, I'm not doing so good." But I have Spare the Dying in this little doll. And you just you have them cast your Spare the Dying on them, and there they go.
There we go.
Like there's a huge amount of cool things to it that I think really help. One thing that I also find very interesting, that I'll kind of skip ahead for, is the Arcane Armament feature. So essentially, it allows a spellcasting based class to attack twice, something that isn't really seen ever. But the biggest thing is that, when one of the attacks must be made with a magical weapon, however, and the magic of which must be which you use to propel the attack. However, due to infusions or due to just the ability that you may have through certain, other spells and whatnot and other features, that still can be very useful and still be used quite frequently by level 5.
And I'm just looking at these infusions right now. Prominent ones, Boots of Winding Path. Do you want to move 15 feet extra as a bonus action? Boom. Requires to be a 4th level, however, and a pair of boots. So one of them is harder than the other.
Get to 4th level.
Yeah. Enhanced Defense, +1 bonus to armor class while wearing a certain armor or shield. Enhanced Weapon, +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls. So you can essentially make a set of armor, a shield, or a weapon into a +1 weapon. Always nice. Many-handed pouch pretty much lets you make an interdimensional space in a pouch.
Mm-hmm.
So you want a little tiny mini bag of holding? Boom. Artificer.
So, and then finally, one of the things I do want to get to that's before we get to specializations here, they do have spell storing item, which is a little more better in the infusion aspect, and maybe it was more closer to what I was thinking of. But one of the things they get is the right cantrip for the job, which we referenced to earlier, which is that pretty much every time you finish a short or long rest, so it could even just be a short rest, you can replace one of your Artificer cantrips that you know with another one. So it's pretty great.
Oh, yeah.
It really, honestly, if you feel like, oh, man, I really should have had this cantrip. Bam.
Right?
Just give me an hour.
Why did I pick Guidance? I never use it.
Yeah. I had this idea when I initially built the character, and then it never actually happened. So
let me pick something more applicable. Let me pick Resistance.
Yes. Okay. So I want to get to the specialties.
Yes.
As we are closer and closer getting to the end here. So we're not going to be going to our T's third topic, clearly. But it's because there's a lot to go through on this. It's a whole class, man. It's not just a subclass.
Allow us to nerd out for this one.
Yeah. So the Alchemist, this is the one that pretty much is kind of the same.
Yes.
I say kind of, because they aren't just given a little mechanical dog. At least not the way it's described.
Unfortunately.
You say that, but instead you get a homunculus.
Which could be looking like a dog, and I will take that.
I guess if you really want it to. Or you can make it look like a guy with an eye patch and a weird mustache.
That's true. Basically, you get familiar with it, and
But it's not just a familiar. Oh, it's not just a familiar. So let's see. So we'll start. You get extra spells, first of all, for pretty much either of the subclasses you take, which is handy. So, for example, at 3rd level, you get things like Purify Food of Drake and Rain of Sickness, and they can go up to things like Raise Dead. So that's cool.
Wow.
But then, so the homunculus is we'll start with the base text here. At 3rd level, you learn ancient methods for magically creating a special homunculus that is formed by alchemical substances. My bad. Whenever you finish a long rest or alchemist supplies are with you, you can form this homunculus in an unoccupied space within 5 feet of you. If you already have a homunculus from this feature, the first one immediately dies.
Disappointing, but all right.
You can't build your mechanical army yet. But yeah, this honestly, like, you determine the homunculus appearances, which include wings and bits of alchemical equipment. Some alchemists prefer mechanical looking birds, whereas others like winged vials or miniature cauldrons. So you really can go anywhere with this, actually, which is the next part.
Puppy.
So it can be a tiny dog. Yes.
Puppy.
Yes. You can have a little puppy. Or you can make a tiny man. With a mustache.
Child.
With a mustache and an eye patch. And I call him Fury. Or depending on the series, Pride.
I mean, he always gets there at the nick of time.
So this is where Mandy comes in. And this is actually for both subclasses when we get to the second one. But if you cast Mending on it, you heal it.
For 2d6?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Jesus.
Mending is really important for the Artificer.
And let's see, which is good because its hit points is equal to 5 times your level in this class and your intelligence modifier.
Yeah, so at first level it may be pretty small.
Yeah, it's
gonna be really big depending on your intelligence modifier.
Potentially, it might have the same health points as you.
Yeah, so it essentially could have, if you're, I'll go with the idea that you would ideally build this.
Yeah,
it could be from 6 to 10.
Yes.
Which is really good, and then can only get, obviously it only grows because it's 5 times. That's really good. But you also don't want this thing dying all the time. That's a lot of resources. So it should have a lot of health. It doesn't have a crazy amount of AC, though. It's 13. At level 1, that may seem like a decent amount for most encounters.
Pretty much.
That doesn't grow. Well, it can, but we'll get there.
Yes.
At baseline, though, it doesn't really grow, and it has a speed of 30 feet or fly feet of 30. You can make it fly, though, which is nice. I think that's a cool addition. It makes it more useful, potentially. Otherwise, yes. And then potentially you can revive it.
Oh, yeah. It just requires your alchemist supplies and a level 1 spell slot.
Yep. It does have, though, some nice abilities, which we could get into a lot more. But essentially, this thing, when it's in your turn, essentially this thing shares a turn with you. And to do its actions requires your bonus action. But that's kind of what the whole class is. I mean, this is just the mechanical version of Beastmaster. So in a way, it's slightly more useful. Yeah. So then, alchemical mastery, things like magical chemicals, more powerful.
Mm-hmm. It's immune to acid.
Chemical savant.
Yeah. And this is just to further emphasize how great this homunculus is. It's immune to something that the Tarrasque is not: acid.
Always build your automatons to be immune to acid. So then we'll get to the last one here, which is going to be the artillerist. So this is what replaced the gunsmith.
Yes.
Not gunslinger, just gunsmith.
Yep.
So again, rest in peace, Thunder Cannon.
Oh boy.
It was fun while it lasted.
But hello, Arcane Turret.
Yes. So I am not the most sad about it, and this is why I think it actually fits a lot better. Because the idea of the Artificer to me was always that they were the big inventor. They always brought in, they kind of like were the ones that pushed, like when airships were made, it was artificers that pushed that, right? Like it wasn't just wizards, it was these artificers. They're the inventors. So give them a turret.
And this turret has 3 different activation things.
Yes.
I'm going to start from the bottom to the top because I feel like that'll emphasize more. Do you want something that can...
Oh, you do get Fireball with this as well.
Yes. Do you want something that can give you temporary hit points? Try Defender. Defender is always nice. It's 1d8 plus your intelligence modifier. If not, that's not your thing.
Otherwise, then just take a flamethrower.
Dexterity saving throw. It's pretty great. It's a lot of fun.
It's pretty much just it just does Burning Hands.
Pretty much. And if you just want something simple, a Force Ballista is always there for you.
What is this? I've made a nut puncher. It's a mega nut puncher. Oh my god. Yes, I know what I'm doing with this.
The nut puncher.
Here, can you hold this for me? Why? Um,
Then we have wand prototype at 6th level. Pretty much you can make a wand with a cantrip.
which has a lot of use for it. That is just big utility in many ways, or offense utility in both of offense or just usefulness in terms of pure utility.
True.
The pure definition of it.
Finally, fortified position,
Mhm.
where you guys get half cover within 10 feet of the turret you create with Arcane Turret.
And you can summon a second one for free.
Also true. Half cover is a +5, I believe, to AC.
Yes, I think so. I'm not off the bad off the top of my head, but it sounds right to me.
Yeah, because 3/4 is +2. So +5 to your AC and dexterity saving throws. Always nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, no, this thing definitely is, to me, like, I think it's a very solid replacement. I think it fits the idea of it more. And then finally, at least in terms of what's on the PDF, there is the infusions again. Getting to 8th level, you can get to their radiant weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're dealing with a lot of unholy stuff, bam, unholy now.
And then you can replicate magical items as well, by the looks of it.
Yeah. So now you can't just like create you can't just create like the mage staff or the magus staff and whatnot. Like, I have created the all-powerful staff. But it's still useful things. And replicate magical item is, so there are different ones that are essentially dependent on your level.
Yes.
So you can get to actually really cool stuff, but that's not right away. Right away, though, you can do really cool things, like you can essentially make your own rope of climbing. So no needing to pray to gods that get you Thanos.
Tim.
That's an inside joke. Cloak of the Manta Ray. Cap of water breathing. So you want to make that stone skin.
Yep.
Who needs to cast the ritual spell? I've just made this cap of breathing. Huh. Just like stone skin down, so you just sink.
The rest of the party just sees the cap floating on the surface.
Oh. Oh no. Things have gone bad.
Right.
Things you make though may still require attunement.
Oh yeah, definitely. Let's see. 12th level. Great standouts. You can make gauntlets of ogre power. So 19 strength.
Or braces of archery, which is also useful, especially since this class usually uses crossbows.
Right. You can do a headband of intellect as well at 12th
level. So I'm going to be honest. It should not be for your own purpose. If you get to 12th level and you're not at this point where you're at all close, at least, you should be at least at 18 at this point. Because if you had to maybe start with like a 14,
yes,
you still had 2 chances to get yourself to 18, or at least to 16.
Well, just put it on your homunculus.
See, but that's what I was going to say. I meant for you, like you as a character. Other people, it's fine. If you would have put it on your dumb warlock, then go right ahead.
Perfectly.
They may not use it, apparently, but you could work.
But they're solid in terms of skills. And finally, for 16th level, potentially great, put a belt of hill giant strength on your homunculus and let them go wild.
Or you.
That's true.
You really could just do you, too, if you really wanted to.
We also have the Amulet of Health, if you ever want your Constitution to be at 19. Always nice. Boots of Levitation, Boots of Speed, Bracers of Defense. Typically, might not be applicable to this, but good for those monks that you might have in the party. And last notable thing is always the Ring of Protection. Because who doesn't like it? +1 to AC and saving throws.
Exactly. But yeah, so, and then finally, one of the things we can get to is they added a new spell.
Yes.
So the arcane weapon, and this is pretty much the final thing on here.
Level 1 spell, bonus action.
Transmutation. You channel arcane energy into one simple or martial weapon you're holding, and choose damage type: acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, or thunder. Until the spell ends, you deal extra 1d6 damage of the chosen fire type to any target you hit with the weapon. If the weapon isn't magical, its weapon becomes a magic weapon, and for the spell's duration. So as a bonus action, then you can change the damage above, choosing from the options above. This lasts with concentration up to an hour. At higher levels, you can maintain your concentration of this spell for up to 8 hours. God forbid you ever encounter for that long.
But if you are, I am so sorry.
The use of that, honestly, is that if you had a 3rd level and you knew you were going to be in this tunnel, though, for like a long time, then the benefit, like if, say, you had just taken a long rest, you went into a dungeon, and you know you're going to be in this dungeon for a long time, because you're going to be in it for maybe like 12, 14 hours maybe,
Yes.
at least before you rest again.
Right.
So potentially you could keep it up for 8 of those hours as long as you keep your concentration going. But obviously that does mean it's a concentration spell, but hopefully you're not too off in that realm.
That's true.
Hopefully.
It's fun too, because if you do find some way to get a firearm, you can just give it a nice little poison to it, and then watch the magic happen.
Not only have they just been shot, but they're poisoned.
Or give them a nice trip with acid.
Not that kind of acid.
Yes. But yeah, so we're very excited for this new release for the Artificer.
I really, I've been looking forward to hearing at least something about a new class. I did like playing the Artificer. I didn't get to use enough of it, though, so I've wanted to have another chance. And so this immediately on its own seems very exciting, and that's cool.
Always good. But yes, Marshall,
Yes.
would you be doing this class anytime soon, in your opinion?
Honestly, depending. Like, honestly, I would love to do it. It depends, because I almost would want to test it in certain situations. But I definitely see use for it, for a number of things. So, potentially. Who knows? But you know what? Who knows about what? Me. I know it's the end of the episode.
Hey.
That was the worst segue I've ever done. But it was a segue nonetheless.
We have many podcasts to go, so that can change.
I mean, I said now, up to this point.
Up to this point.
I could do a new one,
Yes.
and that will still. Then I can make that the worst one I've done.
So yeah, brief summary. Ghosts of Saltmarsh coming out May 21st. Make sure you pre-order either on D&D Beyond or at your local game store. Always great to do.
Otherwise, UA for the Artificer out right now
Yeah,
on the Wizards website.
It's actually on the Wizards website. I was incorrect for the last one.
Yeah, that's right.
He already gave me hell for it, so you don't have to.
Yeah, no. So that was. But we do have finally a truly revised Artificer. There is a revised Ranger on Wizards still. It's just not in D&D Beyond.
Yes. And once again, thank you to Lake Geneva Games for allowing us to film and record at their wonderful shop.
Yes, no problem. And then otherwise, we will see you guys next week in what is supposed to be the episode that would have came out the week of this recording.
Yes.
But instead, this episode's coming out.
Pretty much.
So,
also,
yes.
Gary Con.
Yeah, well, that'll be over by the time by that time that episode comes out.
But Gary Con. We might have some stories from there. Thank you.
Yes. See you guys later.